Hey guys, it's Misty with My Paper Cuts, and today I wanted to come on and give you guys an update. I know this one's a little behind, but life lately, giant understatement here, life is just busy. It gets out of control. Um, as some of you know, I have been working on the wonderful challenge that Daniela Hayes started called No Paper Left Behind. I will list everyone below for the links that I have of the people who do this challenge. Basically, it's the challenge to try to use up an entire paper pad within 1 month. I started this in May. So as you can see, yeah, I'm still working on it, but it is a full 12 by 12 paper pad, and I have already made several large projects. So basically now I'm down to the scraps, and so I've started making my cards. So for those of you who don't know, this is the collection that I started with. It is called Family Heirlooms from Bo Bunny. Very vintage, girly, definitely family album type scrapbooking if you want to do it. It's very family tree, heritage type paper line. It's beautiful. I love every single sheet in this collection. At first, these blue ones right here kind of threw me through a loop, but I managed to work with them. So like I said, now I'm down to the scraps. So I have been working on cards. And so for both of these cards today, I did use this die set here, which is an old one from Sizzix. It does say it's from 2011, but it is a frame die set, and I used the largest frame. And you'll see the frame, but also one of the more important things is I use this inside piece here. So my scraps weren't quite big enough to do this whole frame, but I just still managed to make it work. So, and then on the first card that I'm going to share with you, I used this stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and I used this rose right here. So that is the stamp that I used on the first card. And on both cards, I used this, which is really, really cool. I got it a Tuesday morning. It's actual wood paper, and half the sheets are adhesive and half of them are just regular, but this is real wood, so it has the graining and the texture, but it's super thin, so it's really easy to die cut and easy to work with. All right, so the first card here, sorry for my squeaky chair, apparently I need some WD-40. So on this card here, I actually used some foiled, well, it's actually just, it's not really foil, it's more just a metallic paper. It's an old paper pad that I think I picked up at probably Hobby Lobby or someplace. And then, like I said, this is the inside of that frame. So I cut my pattern paper from the inside of that frame and popped it up on some foam there. And then I cut the wood paper as well, but I only had to cut that one a couple times because I used half of it for each card. And what I did was I just cut it along an angle and just eyeballed it, and I made a deckled edge as I did it. I couldn't find my deckled edge scissors, and I was too lazy to use the dies, so I just did it by hand. And I inked around the edges and mounted that on top of the pattern paper. And then here's my two stamped images, which I did watercolor with my Zig markers. And the inside of this is some gold stickles just dotted on, and then the leaves are actually fully coated in Distress Rock Candy glitter, which is a clear glitter from Tim Holtz. I love that. And then this sentiment here is just stamped on some watercolor paper. Hopefully you guys can see. I love when you can get that texture from watercolor paper as well as the thickness. It's nice and thick and sturdy for when you want to mail it. And then these drops here are Nuvo Vintage drops, and this color is called Coral Blush, and obviously it dries much darker than it shows in the bottle, but they do dry matte. They have a more matte finish than the regular drops from Nuvo. And then on the inside here is another stamp, and I watercolored these leaves here with Distress Oxide in peeled paint. And I just love the way you get the oxide look. I just love, you get a little variation in color. It's not boring, it's not flat, and it dries very opaque. So even on this color cardstock, the color comes right through. Again, I was a little bit lazy and didn't add extra colors, but you really don't need to when you use oxide inks. And this is stamped in VersaFine so that it's waterproof. So when I did that, none of my ink would smear. So that is the first card that I did. And I did get 6 cards out of the scraps in this particular one. So I thought I would go through real quick and just give you guys a quick glance at those. I did leave the insides blank just because it is just a simple hello card. And then these 3 here, I just did with the dress form paper. So that card I got 6 of, which is a nice number. And then the next card, I used the same die and the exact same way I used the pattern paper in the center of the frame. I used this stamp set right here, and I used this large floral stamp right there. And again, I stamped it in VersaFine ink, and I watercolored again, but I also did these layering pieces of the leaves and the individual blossoms, and you'll see why in just a second. But I wanted to share with you guys what I used to watercolor with. So I used these Daniel Smith dot sheets. I actually get these off of Amazon. I think I've ordered them 4 times now. But what's so cool about these dot sheets is you get a little sample dot of every single color that Daniel Smith offers. And these are really high-end watercolors, and so they are amazing to work with. So if you get these dot sheets, you get 4 sheets, including all the specialty ones, which I kind of swatched, but you guys can see like all that shine and everything you can get. But you get, I mean, the entire selection. And it's like, I want to say it's like 21, or I think it's less than $25 for these, which I believe a tube is like $12 or $15 for just one color. And so far I haven't found any colors that I use that would warrant me buying a tube. You get a lot to work with these little dots. So it's a really good purchase in my opinion. And what got me turned on to them was in several card kits I've received, I've gotten little dot sheets too. And I've used these multiple times, and this is the only color I've run out of. So, I mean, that's amazing that, those can stretch so far, and they're really, really inexpensive. So again, I used that, and here is this card. So I cut the frame in this one out of that wood paper again, so you guys can really see the texture there on that. And I used my Brother Scan and Cut after I watercolored the images and cut them out. And I popped up the individual pieces onto foam so that it would have lots of dimension. But what I wanted to point out here was that these stamped images, the leaves and these individual blossoms, like I was telling you about that I popped up, I actually ran them through this flower mold. So this is the Basics flower mold from Heartfelt Creations. And this is really good because it's got these nice big openings for, all your flowers. It adds a lot of like the veining and that petal texture. But what I did was, instead of putting, like for most of the flowers, you put the image upside down or you put it face down. But I wanted them to curve away, like toward the paper here. I don't know if you guys can see that. I wanted it to curve down, so I put them face up so that they would kind of be more cupped down. And I only spritzed them with a little bit of water because I did not want to mess up my watercoloring. And then I ran them through my machine. And it is really thick watercolor paper, so it could definitely withstand that after all that watercoloring. And what that did was it gave some texture to those stamped images. Hopefully you guys can see that there. Trying to get a good shot, especially the leaves. It adds just some interest and some texture to those images. So really those molds aren't just for making flowers. You can use them to add texture to smaller images like this. I think that's really fun. And then I stamped the sentiment here on just a strip of watercolor paper. Again, I just love the texture and the strength of it. And I kind of bowed it up a little bit just to give it some texture to go with the flowers there. Let's see how many times I can say texture in this video. Apparently I like it. And then the inside is exactly like the other ones. I kept it simple because the outside was really a lot of work. And then these drops here are the regular crystal drops from Nuvo, and this color is called Velvet Sage. And it's again, it looks a lot lighter than what it dries. So it's really good if you guys get these to swatch them so you remember exactly what color they dry, so that you don't add something to your project and then be sad about it later. So this card I actually only got 4 of, but that's okay because it took me a long time to watercolor the images. But so there's those 4 cards. So this is my first little batch I wanted to share of cards. So there's 10 cards out of just some of my scraps. I do have another batch of 2 different styles of cards that I would like to share with you guys, but I want to keep my videos a little shorter so you guys don't get too bored with me. So I'll be back in a few minutes, and thanks for stopping by. See you in a bit.